the Wall Street Journal. Take a look at this. They published a stark reminder of his detainment on its front page today. Look at the headline there. His story should be here. The paper also sent push notifications to smartphones to raise awareness of what has happened to this journalist. Joining me now is one of Evan Gershkovich's colleagues, Wall Street Journal senior video correspondent Shelby Holliday. Shelby, thank you for being with us on this day. We saw that front page. It's so striking, and all the messages from your colleagues. What's the feeling there in the newsroom today on this terrible anniversary?
It's a somber day, and thank you so much for having me on to talk about Evan. It's a day that we never wanted to have come. It's a day we never wanted to have to mark. Yet here we are 1 year later. The facts are that Evan Gershkovich is an incredibly talented journalist. He's an American journalist, but he was raised with Russian heritage, and he was one of the few American journalists to be accredited to report on the ground in Russia after the war in Ukraine broke out. So he felt he had this unique and powerful duty to tell us what was going on in this country at a really important time in the world. He was breaking a lot of news. He was writing deeply sourced and powerful pieces about President Putin and his inner circle, about Russia's war effort, about how that war effort was affecting the Russian economy. And then 1 year ago, he was detained for doing his job, and for doing his job well. So it's been a really tough year. We've tried as much as we can to support him and write him letters. We've held readathons. We had a lot of colleagues from ABC and from across the news world come into the office and read some of Evan's work this week. And all of that's been really meaningful, but nothing will change until he comes home.
It's time. It is such a tough situation. Having been to Russia many times, you could feel the walls closing in as Putin cemented his grip on power. And after the war began in Ukraine, it was just very difficult. So Evan, one of the few reporters able to get there and do great work, and now he's in prison for it, and unjustly, obviously. You've spoken with his parents, Evan's parents, several times over the past year. How are they holding up?
His parents are just incredibly wise and strong and gracious. It's so impossible to imagine what it would be like to walk in their shoes. But one thing that they've remained throughout the year is optimistic. I interviewed them a few days after Evan was detained, and his mom said, "We came from the Soviet Union, we fled the Soviet Union, but we're Americans, and we're happy to be Americans, and we choose to be optimistic." And that is something that they have done so powerfully throughout the past year. For example, they actually traveled to Moscow last summer to go see Evan at a hearing, standing in his cage. And I'll never forget it. I was talking to his mom, writing a print story about it, and she said, "We smiled. We chose to do the one thing that the Russian authorities would never expect us to, which is to have this happy, beautiful moment with our son, despite the terrible circumstances, despite the unfair fact that he is standing behind a glass cage. We wanted to have a happy moment and take that home with us." And even after hearing President Putin give an interview and talk about their son as if he is a bargaining chip, they chose to be optimistic and looked at it as good news that President Putin is willing to talk to the U.S. about potentially releasing their son. So they've just remained remarkably strong. And of course, it's been a difficult year. And of course, they're admitting it's taking a toll. It's taking a toll on Evan. Of course, it's taking a toll on his family. But they're looking forward to the day he walks free, whenever that is. They have a vacation planned. They are, in their heads have so many ideas of what they'll do. They weren't able to hug him when they went to Moscow. His mom just wants to give him a big hug. So, of course, it's a difficult anniversary, yet they remain incredibly strong and are truly setting the bar for all of us.
That's amazing, and I love that story of a smile being an act of defiance and courage in the teeth of the Kremlin's regime. And, it's getting so difficult to report, not just in Russia, but elsewhere as well. It used to be you could go to a lot of bad places, and if you were a reporter, there was you weren't safe, but it was a different status. No longer. And Evan's case, what does his case say about the state of press freedom and the safety of journalists around the world today?
That's a really important point. And while, of course, today is about Evan and the 1 year anniversary of his detention, it is also a really important day to shine a light on several journalists who have been detained and several journalists who report in the face of really challenging authoritarian circumstances. The fear is that President Putin, by detaining Evan and others like him, is showing other governments who have similar authoritarian leanings that if you don't like what's being reported about you, or you have a little problem with the press, maybe you can just grab a journalist and hold him unlawfully and unfairly and wrongfully, and that's how you deal with it. And it's something that we have been screaming about all year at the Wall Street Journal, that this, yes, it's about our colleague, but it's also bigger than that. It's about press freedom and the ability for journalists to be on the ground and tell important stories and give us a window into events that are shaping this generation. So it is a big day to talk about press freedom. And if you go to the Wall Street Journal homepage, you'll see stories about Evan, but also about other journalists who have suffered similar circumstances.
That's great. Shelby Holliday from the Wall Street Journal, thank you for being with us on this day, for bringing us news and that perspective as well. And we all hope that Evan comes home, as he should.
Thank you so much
soon.
for highlighting this. We really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.